Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss a very important topic, that is inheritance. In the previous lecture I have discussed how to uh, draw, or we can how to define by using class diagram, how to define a class, and where we have to define the data member and member function also. I have also discussed about the access specifier, and there are four type of access specifier I have already discussed: public, protected, private and package access specifier, or we can say default access specifier. I have also talked about non access specifier, or sometimes we call it modifier. For example, read only, unique, static, those things I have already discussed by using class diagram. And today's topic is very important. Most of the time you will get a question from inheritance, because this topic is very important. So you already know what is the definition of inheritance. Here in this object oriented design lecture, just I will discuss how to draw or make by using class diagram, how to make inheritance. So I will discuss, and I will discuss some features of inheritance, like I will discuss why we use the inheritance for generalization, for specialization, for inheritance for extension, restriction, inheritance for overriding. I will discuss in this lecture. Those concepts is very important, because most of the time we know that inheritance means just take the properties of the base class. It's not like that all the time. We are not going to do that. Sometimes we will provide some restriction in my child class. So before that, so what does mean actually inheritance? So inheritance is a way to form a new classes using the classes that have already defined. For example, here one of the base class that has been already defined, and I am just will form a new class that is called derived class or child class, from by what properties. uh, so with the help of base class properties, or you can say the for in this example, for example, attribute name 1, name 2. So those data member or data member should be present here, and even those functionality of data member function, that should be also present here. So it will be very clear to you when I will give you an example. So right now inheritance is a way to form a new classes using the classes that are have already been defined. So one class already been defined, and we will form a new class with the help of base class. Okay, that is the concept of inheritance. I am just talking in respect of object oriented design. What does it mean actually? So what is the purpose? So inheritance is intended to help the reuse existing code with little or no modification. Most of the time we will think that some modification is required. Sometimes we will see that no modification is required, just we will provide some restrictions so that you can get the idea. The new class is known as child class or derived class, or sometimes we call it subclasses. Okay, so that class is known as derived class. So the class which has been formed based on other classes is known as subclass or child class, or you can say derived class. So inherit attribute and behavior of the previous pre-existing classes. So here whatever the attribute and whatever the functionalities of the base class, that attribute or functionality will be inherited in my child class. Okay, so and that class is known as base class, or we can say super class or parent class, as you know. So here the class pre-existing class is known as base class, and the new class which has been formed from the pre-existing class is known as derived class. and if I want to form a inheritance, so with that symbol is very important. Okay. So this is a is a relationship between two classes. For example, if you think, if you take the student is a person, right, chair is a furniture, parrot is a bird, so that time is a relation. And uh, for example, in this diagram, manager is a employee, so manager can inherit all the features of employee. For example, here we have use for example, you have a employee name, employee ID, and we have some functionality like get employee ID, get name. So those functionality will be inherited in our manager class. So that is the concept of inheritance. So whenever we declare by using class diagram, so that is the relation from base derived class to my base class. That symbol is used, that arrow symbol is used in case of inheritance. And let us talk about some several reason to use the inheritance and enumerated, like we can say inheritance by, let me write here within this space, inheritance. The first is for specialization. Okay. So what does it mean actually? This is the one of the common reason to use the inheritance to create the specialization of existing classes. So in specialization, the derived class has data or behavior objects. So these are called data, these are called behavior aspect that are not part of the base class. Okay. For example, square is a rectangle, right? Square is a rectangle, and square class is a specialization of rectangle class. So square is a relation, please remember it, square is a rectangle. So rectangle class, the square class is a specialization of rectangle class. Similarly, we can think circle is an ellipse. Okay. So where circle is class is a specialization of ellipse class. Another example, for example, we have a bank account class. So might have some data members such as account number, customer name, balance, and interest bearing account class might inherit the bank account, then add some data member interest rate, interest acquired along with the behavior for calculation the interest earned. So this is the example of generalization. Okay. Sorry, specialization. And the second thing is inheritance for generalization. So one of the important thing, inheritance for specialization and inheritance for generalization. So we have seen here. So you can think like this. For example, let me think about, for example, we have a vehicle class, and we have a car class, and we have a, for example, truck and bus. Okay. So we have a 3 derived class. So generalization is reverse of specialization. For instance, if I think in this example, if I think vehicles is a generalization of car, so we will link like this. Okay. And so vehicles is a generalization of car, truck and bus. So car, truck, bus are share the common properties such as number of wheels, speed, capacity, etc. Those common properties are abstracted out and put into another class, say vehicles. So these are the relation. This type of relation is called generalization. So we have seen the specialization, inheritance for specialization, inheritance for generalization also. Okay. So next thing is inheritance for extension. So inheritance for extension. So inheritance for extension, in this case the inheritance extends the existing class functionality by adding a new property. For example, you will see all those example in a complete class diagram, so that you can get the idea. Right now, just for your information, what does it mean, the inheritance for extension? Please remember that when suppose we have a two function here, operation function, operation name 1, operation name 2, for example, and if in my derived class if I add new operation in my derived class, so it can be distinguished from my generalization, later must be override at least one of the method from the base class, and functionality is tried to that of the base class. So extension simply means to add a new method in my derived class. That is the main only thing we have to remember. So whenever we are talking about the extension, extension means in my derived class I will add another functionality, and I will also inherit all the properties of base class also. Okay. So that means extension. So when we add simply add a new method to do those of the base classes, and functionality is less strongly tied to the existing method of the base class. Okay. So that is called inheritance for extension. And another thing is inheritance for restriction. For restriction. So here the derived class does not implement the functionality which is base class has. In other words, inheritance for restriction occurs when the behavior of the derived class is smaller or more restrictive than the behavior of the base class. For example, an existing class library provide a double-ended queue, right, and element can be added or removed from either end of the queue, but the programmer wishes to write the stack class enforcing the property that element can be added or removed from only one of the stack. So here we are just in my base class, I am just in my derived class I am just providing the restriction. Okay. So I am not implementing all those things that as it is, but I am providing some restriction to my child class. Okay. So that is for inheritance for restriction. So and the next one is which is very commonly used, that is inheritance for overriding. We will see example also. Inheritance for overriding. We are familiar with this one because we know the what does mean the overriding. So when a class replaces the implementation of a method that has been inherited, called overriding. Okay. So that means whatever the functionality that has been defined in my base class, and if I just replace the implementation of this method that has inherited is known as overriding. I want to say that, for example, we have a add class, the name of the operation name 1. I have also implement the derived class operation name 1, but whatever the implementation within this class, that code is different. Okay. So that properties is known as overriding. Okay. So overriding introduce a complication which version of the method does not instance the inherited class, use one of the part of a own class. Okay. So this is very important. So we will know the overriding, we will see an class diagram what does mean overriding actually. So this 5 reason for use the inheritance. So in this till now I have just discussed what does mean the inheritance and what is the purpose of inheritance. We have seen that inheritance for specialization, just like for example you can think like is a relation for we have seen the simple, the square is a rectangle, circle is an ellipse, and inheritance for generalization we have seen in case of vehicles we have a truck, we have a bus, and we have a car also. So that is the generalization. So these things I have just drawn here. And inheritance from extension means whenever we are going to add a new method in my derived class, that properties is known as inheritance for extension. And inheritance for restrictions means when we do not implement any additional method, but we have just provide the restriction in my derived class, then it is called inheritance for restriction. And inheritance for overriding means whenever we are going to implement details in my existing class functionality by adding new operation in my derived class, that means that replace the implementation of a method that has inherited, it called overriding. Okay. So overriding means we know the procedure, the method name, method signature should be same, but within that I have just replaced the implementation details, means some code will be replaced and new code will be, more restricted code will be placed there. So that is called overriding. Okay. So we already know that overloading, overriding. So that's why I have not discussed in details what does mean the overriding. So we will see a simple example of by using class diagram. In my previous lecture I have discussed about the library system, where I have taken a class name is called member. So I will extend this example to explain the inheritance. So let's see what are the class we can consider in case of library system. So we have a one of the class was member. Okay. So that is my base class. This is the name of the class member, and it has, let's say it has some data type, for example some attribute. Name of the attribute is, for example, name, and data type is string. Okay. So this is the class diagram of inheritance. Okay. So second one is we have another attribute, for example email. Okay. And the data type is string. So you know that whenever we are going to write a data member, so we will use the attribute name colon then data type. Okay. And for example I have used the start date. So let me write start date, and the start date is, data type is date. I have already discussed this one also. And here we are just adding a new date, that is end date, Okay. And this is also a date data type. So suppose I want to, so this is my attribute name, this is my data type. Suppose I want to protect it, all the data member. So we will use the hash symbol in my class diagram. Okay. So these are my data member. Okay. And let me write some member function. Let me first the constructor. We already know that if I want to implement any constructor, the constructor name must be name with the class name. And if I want to pass some argument, for example I want to pass string, so n is my name and string is the data type. So same way we can declare here also, for example email, so that is also string. and suppose I want to pass a start date. Let me write this start date. So s date, or you can write sd, no problem, make it simple. So for example, these are the constructor arguments. So this is my constructor. Okay. Now we have a two class. So this is my base class. I want to implement two derived class from this member. A member may be a lifetime member, a member may be a annual member. So if I think as a lifetime member, so let me write a class which consists of lifetime member. So one of the class name is lifetime member. Okay. So let me write lifetime member. Okay, lifetime member. So this is my class. Okay, and so let me complete this one here also. Okay, lifetime member. So the lifetime member, and we have a another class, for example annual member. Okay, so we have a two derived class of my member class. Okay, so one is lifetime member class and one other is annual member. So if I want to represent by using class diagram, so this is the relationship between the derived class and base class, then we have to use the symbol as I have already mentioned. This is the arrow I have to mention. From this diagram we can understand that member is a member is a base class or super class, and lifetime member is a child class or subclass, or we can say derived class. Okay, this is the relationship between the member class and lifetime member and annual member. So this is my base class, member class is a base class, and lifetime member is a child class, or you can think this is a super class, this is subclass. Okay, so we can think base class, derived class, right? So relationship between we can represent by using array symbol. Okay, so this is my symbol. So in lifetime member, what is according to our definition, for example we have some method in my base class, for example show details. Okay, so let me write show details. Okay, show details is a method, and return type is void. And suppose we have a one of the method name is set duration. From this method we can understood this is one of the method, and we will specify as a end date type is date, and return type of this function is so void, right? So this is my name of the method, and this is my the data type argument. Okay, number of argument is here 1, and the name is edate. Okay, and the type data type is date, and return type of this function is void. So I will set the duration. Okay, I will set the duration. So based on the duration we can understand the whether a member is a lifetime member or whether a member is an annual member. For example, if a member is for example for 60 years, so if the end date is for example 60 years, so then we can say it's a lifetime member. If end date is a for 1 year, so I will talk that I will tell you that it's a annual member. So like that, for example let me define some discount based on the lifetime member. I have just provided some discount, and from annual member I will discuss some provide some discount also. So those features are already available in my derived class. So I am just adding additional property. So here I am just adding booking discount, booking discount. Okay, and that is float, data type is float. Here also I am just discount, booking discount, booking discount. So I will give some discount based on the lifetime member. I will give the, for example, 50%. For annual member I will give 20%. So in this way we can add a additional attribute that is called booking discount, and return the attribute data type is float. Okay, right. And let me write the constructor for this lifetime member. So lifetime member. Okay, I am writing in short is my constructor. So I will write all those things. I will add, for example, name is string. I am writing in short. Email, for example, email is also string. And start date, for example, AD is date. And end date, for example, date, data type is date. So this is my constructor. Let me write the same thing in annual member. So constructor is always public, so that's why we use the plus symbol. Here I have used the protected member, and here we use the minus symbols, means it's a private member. So that properties will be only access to the lifetime member. So that's why I have just given the minus symbol so that you can understand. And let me write the annual member. So constructor, so annual member. Okay, annual member, and all those things I have just written here. So name, everything is there. For example, in name I am just writing string. Email I am writing string, and end date, start date is date, end date is date. So this is my constructor. Suppose I want to specify this set duration method, I want to override this method in my subclass. So I will add some features. So what does mean, I whatever the implementation code I will change. The set duration, this method will for lifetime member it will be end date will be something for 60 years, and here for annual member the end date will be for 1 years. Okay, so like that I will write, but in our diagram I only write the name of the function. In our diagram I will just write the name of the function. I will write the name of the function, duration, and end date. The method signature must be same. So here the date, and return type is void. Okay, and here just I am doing the same thing, set duration, end date, date, void. Okay, so right. So here we are just overriding, method overriding. So that is happen here, method overriding, method overriding. So here in this example, our ultimate purpose is how to represent by using class inheritance relationship by using class diagram. First, this is my base class. Whatever the properties or whatever the attribute is present here, that property is already inherited in my child class. So this symbol is used, arrow symbol is used for the to represent that this is a subclass, and this is my subclass, and this is my superclass. Okay, and that whatever the member present in this superclass, that member function also we can overwrite within this subclass also. So this is my subclass, this is my superclass. So according to our requirement, the set duration function will be different. For example, here the end date will be for 1 year, share ended for will be for 20 years or 30 years, that is for lifetime member. So we can also add some attribute here. We can add some attribute. For example, we can give that booking discount, one of the attribute, that attribute based on our requirement. For example, for lifetime member, I will give the booking discount for 60% of, if any person want to be a lifetime member, so I will give the 60% discount. If any member want to be annual member, I will give 10% discount. Just like I will add some more attribute here according to our requirement. This is the name of the attribute and this is the return type, this is the data type of this attribute. So in this way you can represent inheritance. So this is very good example, and we have also discussed about the relationship between the inheritance also. So in this lecture just I have discussed what is inheritance and why we go for the inheritance, of what are the use of inheritance, and then we have discussed a class diagram. With the class diagram you can see that from the class diagram we can understood that member is a base class and a lifetime member and annual member is a child class. We have used how to represent the public, and this is protected, this is private. So any attribute or any data member we can represent, we can access, we can use the access specifier, we can use the and non-access specifier also, or suppose we want to use some modifier like static. If I want to make any data to static, so we have to underline the attribute, just only we have to underline it. Okay, thank you. In next lecture I will discuss about the inheritance relationship. For example, we will discuss about composition, aggregation. I will discuss about the how to represent the abstract class and interface in respect of class diagram. So I will discuss those things, and I will also discuss some functional some major and minor element of object oriented programming. I will discuss in my next lecture. Thank you.